So hello everybody. We are the crew of the SaveGREEN Project, which is the safeguarding of ecological connectivity in the southeastern, in the Danube Basin practically. One of our main work is to work with stakeholders. My name is Hildegard Meyer. I'm working for WWF Central and Eastern Europe. I am the coordinator of the project, and here you have my colleagues working with us. So Elisa Origi from CEEweb. This is an NGO organization in Hungary. Elliot Cooker, also from CEEweb. Christophe Janz, my colleague from WWF CEE. Sylvia, Borja, yeah, exactly, from EPC, from the consultancy company that is supporting us with many tools for capacity building. And Adam Varga is also from CEEweb. And online, I don't know, I will not explain because we do not have any additional guests. I welcome Eszter, I welcome Vicky, I welcome Gabriella, Bianca, and who else is there? Andrea, no? And Gabi, yeah, we are one more person. Welcome all together. Good. So, why is it important to engage with stakeholders? I mean, what you produce, what you produce is actually not for the drawer somewhere. So, but you would like people to really engage with your topic, and in our case, to improve the situation of ecological corridors in the region, and therefore you need that people know it in the region. Yeah, come in. Okay. Good. So what we are talking about is the introduction. Why do we engage with stakeholders? And then we have we will present a little bit our approach and the lessons learned from SaveGREEN. Then we said we would like to have breakout groups and an analysis session afterwards, and then have a plenary discussion and feedback from the groups. And we are very interested in your experience as well. And then at the end we will wrap up for some conclusions. I don't know, shall we do the Menti? Maybe we skip the Menti because we wanted to know who we are, so maybe you can tell us. Maybe it's easier, you can tell us. I think we need a microphone if somebody online wants to understand something. Mm-hmm.
Maybe your name and also the sector in which you work and are active.
Okay, yeah. Thank you. My name is Raymond Tilmans. I'm working for the province of Limburg. I'm a team leader for a small group of people working on endangered species. And I'm also involved with the defragmentation and wildlife economy is another thing, but yeah, different kind of things. So, yeah.
Perfect. So we can really share experience, I guess.
My name is Eugene O'Brien. I'm with a small company called Research Driven Solutions, and I'm a professor of civil engineering in a University College Dublin. And most of my work is involved in structures and that kind of thing about the transport infrastructure, so this is a very small part of what I do.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
My name is Twan Morel. I'm working for Rijkswaterstaat in the Netherlands, which is a national road authority. And my main topics are management of grasslands and biodiversity monitoring. So these are the main topics.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much. And we are NGO sector and a consultancy company that helps with environmental impact assessment, right? Or would you like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, well, that's
yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it's exactly like Hildegard said. With our environmental consultancy, we do EIAs, appropriate assessments, Natura 2000 assessments, that kind of thing. We are also involved in stakeholders, sort of dissemination of information.
Exactly. Thank you very much. So, and we should ask ourselves, why do we engage with stakeholders? Would we like to inform them only? Would we just inform them what we are doing in a certain area? Or do we know, do we want to consult them as well? Because some of these local stakeholders might have some experience or data that could help us getting forward with our project. Or do we want to integrate them in some certain approaches to help them to find good solutions for nature? Or it's also about process responsibility. So do we want our stakeholders that they take the responsibility for elaborating some plans or for some strategies or for some implementations for local activities or plans? So this is first what we need to be sure. What is the purpose of engaging with them, and then what would we like to get out of them towards the end? I think this has to be very clearly identified in the beginning to be certain. What we did in SaveGREEN, I mean, we maybe a brief introduction to the project is. We are working in 8 different pilot areas where we engage with local stakeholders. So we have various pilot areas in Austria, in the Czech Republic, in Hungary, Ukraine even, Romania, and did I forget something? Czech Republic, Romania, Bulgaria, and down to Bulgaria, exactly. We provided, or we are about to provide ecological corridor maps, and also some recommendations how to improve it based on a monitoring system and the monitoring monitoring activities that we rolled out during the project implementation, and also during our during the elaboration of these plans, what should be made better and what kind of recommendations we can have, we involve them. So for data. They have a lot of knowledge of the area, of course, much more than we. We come from somewhere outside. We bring also knowledge from our side because some people are not aware that ecological corridors are important and why they are important, but they have the right to decide about the land, whether there will be a building block or a settlement increased or the road will be built there and so on. So what we did in the beginning was a stakeholder analysis to find out who has a say in this pilot area for our topic. So we were searching at the national level, of course. Some ministries should be involved because there is a certain legal framework, and that might be possible to be improved, and also at the local level because there are some different roles. So there are landowners, there are mayors that can decide. There are the general public who is of course interested what is going on in my surrounding. And of course there is many interest in one little piece of land, and we analyze them with this grid. So you have this grid on the downside. There is, can you see this? The arrow? Can you see the arrow? No, you cannot see the arrow. So below there is the degree of interest of stakeholders, which is increasing from left to right. And on the vertical line, you see the influence or the power of the stakeholders. This is also from 0 up to higher. So who would be the ones to engage so that you can really change something? If there is a low power and low interest, it's maybe important to involve, like the general public. It's maybe, yeah, it's important, but they cannot change much. Or do they have a lot of interest and low power? Like citizens that really want to get engaged and interested in the topic you would like to do there. Or you have high power and low interest. This is a very bad combination actually, because here you would need to put more efforts into it. Or do they have both? Do they have high power and high interest? And these are our key players actually, and we would need to engage closely with them. So based on our analysis, we set off and contacted local stakeholders and also those that are important on the national level. So we found out that it would, I mean, in Austria, I'm bringing now examples from Austria because I was directly involved. I can easily better talk about this. Maybe Silvia can then add on some points. So based on this stakeholder analysis, we started with a small group. So we got some contacts from somewhere to the hunters, for example, or to the mayor. So we had little face-to-face meetings with them, explained them what we would like to do, and it was really good. They were quite supportive. And these certain allies worked well, like with the transport infrastructure company ASFINAG and with the ministry, because the ministries and the ASFINAG and the environmental authority in Austria, they had already some relationships. So it was good to get on this and get support for this. And then we tried with the hunters, because we had the plan to implement monitoring in the area. And we found out through a very heavy meeting that the hunters did not allow us to put the cameras, although it's in the law that it is possible in Austria, that if you ask the hunters associations in a certain area, they have the power to allow to hang on, to put on the cameras. But they refused, because one said, hey, come on, there are landowners. You need to ask landowners what you are doing there. So you could not, it was really difficult. Yeah. And then we had the local leader group. This is a EU supported for smaller projects in the area, and they were really very supportive as well. And they took on the terminus ecological connectivity in their project. So in a case somebody submits a project where there is some activities towards ecological connectivity, like planting hedgerows or planting trees or extending the orchard, they will win the project. So they will have some extra plus, and it's more likely that they will win the project. And then it's also good to create personal and emotional bonds to the area. This is what I've learned from EPC. You brought the ministries up to the area, right? And the minus is, of course, that we only have very short-term projects. And if you start with an engagement, people expect something. Yeah? So you need to have a lot of capacity to keep them informed first, and to engage them really, and then to also showcase what you did, and hopefully find a common decision on certain recommendations you would like to do. So, as I said, more capacity is needed. It's always underestimated how much capacity it's needed to really talk to everybody and bring everybody on board. Then we also saw that we did not respect the hierarchy of structures of our stakeholders. This was also because we got contact to hunters, but they were not in the right position to say. So they were not very supportive in the beginning. So we tried it from another round. So this was quite tricky for us, but in the end it worked out well. But it might not. You never know. And then, of course, the sensitive issue of private property. And if you come there with some restrictions or suggestions what they should do, it's not so easy. And then it's also in Austria the situation of the decision taking. It is split, so we have a regional government, so it's a federal system. And what the state wants does not sometimes, I don't know, you have maybe similar systems in your country. Exactly, and then you cannot offer a comprehensive financing mechanism if some landowners can really offer something. So this is just to show you what we were experiencing, and we would like to come to the first exercise, which is the stakeholder conflict simulation. And I would like to invite Eszter, our colleague, she's online, to tell you a little bit more about the exercise. And then we go into the exercise for around 20 minutes and come back for a feedback round. And Eszter will bring in some technical background, and then we can talk and exchange experience. So this is the plan. Eszter, hello.
Hello. Welcome to the participants. I hear a little echo. I don't know if you experience anything like that there.
No.
But welcome to everybody. Great. Okay. So it's kind of solved. My name is Eszter Sebestyén. I'm the work package communication lead of the SaveGREEN Project. And I saw we are a little bit started late, so I don't want to go that much in details about the upcoming exercises, but let me guide you through what we are going to do. The first exercise would be, as Hildegard said, a simulation kind of. So we prepared some, let's say, based on case studies, some role play kind of exercise. And as we are not that much persons participating online, so we will probably have one main group online, and I guess one main group in person. Each group will have a facilitator who will help the process of the exercise. You will get a story, and each story would have a story goal, let's say, and each story has, of course, participants, and each participants will have a role and a task to fulfill. Online, I will distribute it to the participants, and I would like to invite the offline facilitators to share the story with the participants and give the roles to them. I can't really see what is happening offline, so if you could help me with vocals, what is happening?
We have one group.
Okay.
We have one group.
Great.
Can you see?
So I would like to suggest to choose the eco-duct planning story, which is the group 2, because later on we can have the case study analysis based on that. That would help a lot. And after this introduction, we will go to separately with the online group as well, having the same case study and the same roles distributed. And you will have 15 minutes to basically trying to get an agreement and see whether you can fulfill the story goal or the individual goals. What is really important that you will get roles distributed, and each roles will have tasks to fulfill, but this task should be secret to the other participants. So nobody should know what's your role's intention or task to fulfill. So that could create some plot twists in the end, hopefully. So basically, that would be the exercise, the first exercise. And does anybody has question with that, or is it clear what is going to happen? Of course, nobody knows what is going to happen, but the structure of the exercise, is it clear?
Yeah, I think we will need more than 15 minutes. It will be maybe 20 minutes, because now we need to read and to disseminate.
Yeah, sure. Okay, take your time. Okay, so in that sense, I would add 5 more minutes to the discussion. So see you in 20 minutes. And I guess we should be muted or switched off, not to disturb the offline group. So in that sense, at myself, we have 55. So is it okay to meet at 15?
Mm-hmm. Good.
So in 20 minutes. Mm-hmm. Okay, then good luck.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much for your input. I think it was quite playful when I watched you inventing some obstacles that could be still there. And yeah, but of course, it's not much time to really then come to a conclusion. But I think everybody felt a little bit how it is to be in others' shoes, maybe. And now we ask Eszter because she prepared a little bit of a theoretical framework for these conflict situations, how to get along with them, and she will present it to you. And then I think we should go for feedback and your experiences in the field. Let's see, Eszter, are you ready?
Hopefully, yes. Thank you so much for the words. I hope you enjoyed this kind of a thought-provoking game with this role switching. And I will try to use the same case study to showcase the real fun part with some theoretical things. I don't want to weigh you down with these all sorts of knowledge-based information crumbs, but let me try. How can I show this? Just a quick second. All right, you don't see my screen yet, right? How about now? Perfection. I get some feedbacks from the online participants. How about the offline participants?
Yes,
They can also see it.
Perfection. Okay. So basically what I would like to invite you to is to, based on this small role play and this case study, to deeper analyze a little bit this situation. Aside everything else. So what we would briefly go through in the upcoming 10-15 minutes is the kind of like how can we identify the stakeholders and analyze them, how should we make the strategy to reach them. Also somehow trying to identify the conflict and basically try to analyze that also. And when we have this, we reach to the most fun part, who is owning the problem, and how we can prioritize if there is a more complex situation. And also we have two additional points. If we have time, we can go through that as well. But let's start. You can see the same story just for refreshing the minds. And we had a lot of roles involved in that. So there is a lot of parties who is affected by this. And now, as in the exercise, the roles were basically secret. So not the roles, sorry, the tasks of the roles that needed to be fulfilled. And the aim of that to simulate what's in reality, because when you encounter with an expert or any other professional for the first time, you don't know their intentions, you don't know their background knowledge, level of engagement, and all sorts of things needs to identify before you enter into a conversation with that person, not to waste valuable resources like time, money and energy on, for example, a useless conversation, because you cannot do anything with that. So now I can reveal the roles tasks in that sense. So we had the ecological expertise on board. So also we had the landowner, the road company / the construction, like the persons who were mainly responsible for the construction, and the local authorities, aka the mayor office in this role play. Why I put them into different categories and try to came up with more like high situations. I don't know if I managed to, but in that sense, what I would like to invite you to think of a little bit. In the previous presentation, Hildegard mentioned the stakeholder identification analyze tool, which is to see basically each stakeholder on what level can you or you should get in touch with. So if we go back to this story, we have the conservationist. And if we go back here, we have the power/interest matrix. And we could see in this story, it depends on whose perspective we see the situation from. If we are the landowners, we are basically one stakeholder. If the story starts with the research thingy, the conservationist is more in the main character. So they are the one who is more proactively seeking out other stakeholders to interact with. So as a first step, when we have the goal that we would like to achieve, as a next step, we can always enter to this kind of analyzation stage where we can see our story or our task, our goal, who is involved and how is it, how that person is involved and how is it affected. And then basically, when we have this, like, who is affected, how is it affected, how deeply is involved into our story, then we can move to the next step where we can analyze which strategy we should apply to reach out this person. First, we always need to have the goal, what we would like to achieve, for example, in this conversation. That's why I gave these hints next to the roles. So in my imagination, it was like when this person needs to achieve their goal, these will be their interests and tasks to fulfill. So with this in mind, you can enter now into a conversation with anybody else, because these roles and tasks serves as a, let's say, a compass you can always follow. So when you have the persons who is affected, how is affected, and how deeply is it involved, then you can start to negotiate, start to talk with them, get into conversation, hoping that they will help you to reach your goal. And that is usually the, let's say, the forum where most conflicts happens, or let's say different interests gets into an argument. And when we have these conflicts, it is identified that this is a conflict. Prior to that, before, we need to see whose problem is it. Is it only my problem as an ecologist or as a person? Or the other sector also experiences this, and there is no common ground yet? Or is it just the other person's problem and I'm not doing anything to adding more to their problem? Or both of us has this same sense of something is wrong. And that's when we are talking about the problem ownership. And until we don't have this common agreement that we both of us have a problem, we are not talking about a conflict, so we cannot resolve it. But whenever we have this, that's why I put here Houston, we have a problem. We can analyze whose problem is it mainly, as a fun example. But after that, we could basically trying to identify this conflict or problem. Is it an external problem that is affecting others, or is it an internal problem? And I try to bring here as a conflict typization, let's say, the most generic types of conflicts, which is taken from the theater plays and drama writings. So obviously in SaveGREEN, we didn't enter into conflicts with the character versus supernatural, or character versus self, but we don't really know exactly. But based on that, when we have these thought through and give some thoughts about it, we can do as a strategy's next step a catastrophe map, which is basically what could go wrong in this conversation or in this process of trying to resolve something and trying to reach a goal. And after we have those, we can have a plan how, if this happen, any of the worst case scenarios happen, how will we react to that? How will we try to solve it? And the beneficial thing is to have these in mind before we enter to a conversation. Usually when it is happened, it's already too late to think of possible solution because we have this situation weighed down with a lot of tense emotions and some sort of, let's say, barriers, language barriers. And it's really hard after to take out these additional circumstances to be see objectively what is the common goal. And the other, this, like when we have these wrong, the worst case scenarios, that is also can be used for solution prototyping, which is the best case scenarios. What could go right? What is like how my goal can be supported? What is the biggest expectation from entering into a conversation with a stakeholder? And then the most important thing that also Hildegard mentioned, that time is a really big problem in a short-term projects like SaveGREEN. But if we can see in the long term with TransGreen and ConnectGreen, SaveGREEN already has some competitive advantage because we not working the same stakeholders, but we can enter to the same type of conversation with the same type of stakeholders, but in a different level. So this kind of testing could be more enhanced or results. At least this is the best case scenario of the situation in SaveGREEN. So just to shortly sum up the theory, and then I will give the floor back to Hildegard. That's basically, these are the kind of a step-by-step methods that we tested out in SaveGREEN, some sort of. And based on these experiences, what is the real goal when we engage with a stakeholder? The most important thing is to really hear each other personally and also expertise-wise, and have a common ground somehow. And these can be really well supported by all sorts of communication tools. And that's why these kind of workshops, like the stakeholder engagement workshop, or any sort of engagement and communication workshops can be really beneficial for a project team. That's why we entered and decided to go on one with the SaveGREEN team as well, because we kind of realized the uncomfortable truth of these kind of engagements needs a more structured way to enter into, to be able to avoid harsh, let's say, situations that can hinder the whole project goal. And also not to forget when we enter into, let's say, a taboo topic that was not opened before or was not able to discuss before between stakeholders or between sectors. That's also a risky area to start with. So that's why having really tested out methodologies how to engage is the first step towards a successful cooperation, hopefully. So from my side, that would be it. I don't want to speak too much. Let me know if you have some questions, and thank you so much for your attention, and I hope that you liked the experience games and you have some thoughts provoked in you with this topic.
Thank you
And
very
now
much,
I give
Eszter.
back the floor.
Are there any questions for Eszter, or no? No? Okay. Then thank you very much, Eszter. I think we will now dive in a little bit of, based on this, I mean, this example that we went through might also have triggered a little bit some rememberings of your experience from your field. And I would like to ask to share this experience, also maybe bad ones, where we can learn maybe from each other what you did and how you try to overcome it, and if it was successful or not. We have also some examples from SaveGREEN to offer. I mean, I was speaking a little bit, but maybe we would also like to learn from yours, and I think it's a good table now, a round table to share. So please, if you,
Maybe I can
yeah.
start. With or without microphone?
I think it's better because our online
Oh, yeah,
participants
okay.
need to listen.
Yeah, it's funny because this case is actually comparable with the case which I'm now in. So I work for the authorities. I'm an ecologist, and we are now, excuse me, doing research for a green bridge somewhere. We exactly don't know where to build it, but so we have how do you say transact. So in this transact we will investigate where the best place will be. And so we have the forestry agency, actually a nature conservation agency. They have some ground, they own some, they're a landowner, but there are also some private people, and it depends on where the green bridge has to be built. Maybe we should use the private, the land of the private owners. So we haven't talked with them until now, so we have to go to them. And I think that, of course, everyone is, has a different character and interest. So we have to look if we need their land, and if so, if they see it as an advantage, or if they see it as a problem, and how to get a win-win also for them. So I think it's a comparable situation. But first we wanted to do some research if it's necessary at all, because the conclusion might be that it is technical, maybe not possible, or the finances are too high. So all these kind of things we first study before we go into to these people. Otherwise we make them worry, and maybe it's not worth, because maybe the conclusion might be, no, the green beach, forget it, that's not possible.
And then better not to ask the owner.
Yeah, and you can show,
yeah.
you know, I can go to the landowner, but if I don't know if I need this land and so on, better we do this research, and then we can show him what we found. So, but we do know that it's a small forest, but just on this road we had 2 pine martens killed in a pretty short time, 2 wild cats killed in a pretty short time. And for us as province, this is a very important, these 2 species are very important, because they're just entering our country now. So.
So you want to pave the way for them?
Yeah.
Not pave the way.
No, unpaved, yeah.
And we also have collisions with wild boar and red deer. So it's important that we hope to manage it. So
Just out of interest, do you, once you've identified the spot, do you have the right to force the landowner to sell you the land? Or is it always based on their voluntary participation?
may be, but
We don't want to do it.
Actually, we're trying to look for two alternative locations. So if this landowner wants to sell his land, maybe we choose for the other one. But we don't know yet. Mm-hmm. So, and to be honest, I think it's very difficult that we say we'll grab your land. And I never experienced this before, so I don't think so. Then probably it won't continue the story. So
I mean, we have something similar in Austria, because we have one stretch of the motorway where ASFINAG is obliged to build a green bridge. So the motorway company is obliged by the Ministry of Climate Action that they need to build a green bridge there. And they investigated different places and set some very simple indicators, but not easy, I mean, to say. So it's the costs of the green bridge because of the area around. You might have flat area, but in Austria you have sometimes some hills, and some places are maybe more.
Same with us. We have the hills, so we have to.
Okay, so some places are with less earthwork than others, and they also had in their indicators the attitude of the landowner, which was really interesting. So the best place that would fit for the green bridge, all agreed, but the landowner said no, and they don't want to touch this. So they are now negotiating with another landowner they found.
Exactly.
But it might not be 100% the best place for it. So we are somehow a little bit involved in this. Yeah. Yeah. But they went via the community, via the mayor. So they discussed also with the mayor, because he also knows, or she also knows where some certain places are, and where they have their strategic development within the community. So whether there will be a settlement somewhere there, then it doesn't make sense to build a green bridge. So they went. And together with the landowner, they had discussions, but they are still negotiating, because the former owner of this now gave it to his daughter, and now they are negotiating about what they can gain out of it, of course.
Yeah, sometimes it can be different.
They want to have noise panels because it's too loud in the surroundings and things like that. So they are negotiating now, but it's a long process, honestly. Yeah.
So if you approach a landowner with a problem like this, you want to build a green bridge, and their immediate response is no, then we talk about these kind of methods of negotiation and so on. But how far or persistent would you be in negotiations if the initial response is no? And I mean, or are there not often cases where the landowner says no, and therefore you kind of just move on and consider an alternative, like in the example?
Yeah, so I don't think, it's also dependent from the political situation. Yeah. In our case, it will be difficult, I guess. And after the elections in March, it will be more difficult, I guess. But there's another possibility, and that he can keep his land, but we change the status of his land into a nature area. So that's one way. So he will never. So maybe it takes 10, 20, 30 years, but then. We can assure that there will be no buildings, and when we want to build the green bridge, it won't be blocked by another development. That's one thing. Another thing is that so we don't onteigenen. What's that? Onteigenen?
Private, expropriate.
Yeah. If you have private ground, sometimes the government can say, well,
take it.
Yeah. But in this case, you have a voluntary task.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you have to have a support base from the one who is willing to sell their property.
There is one other exception, and that's that if he sells his land, you can say we are the first one to buy it. So that's wetvolkersrecht. That's one option in Holland.
Yeah, but you have in the Dutch law, the how you call it, the interest of the public has to have a very hard argument to retract ground from private owners. For example, for a road, in some possibilities it can succeed. For buildings, for living.
Electricity grid and so on, things like that.
But for nature conservation, it's not a too hard ground to say to some owners, well, I want to have your land. So there's a bit of difference between the priority on what cause you can retract land from public for public use.
Yeah.
I mean, nature has no rights in our laws, right?
Yeah, that's right.
I've heard in Ecuador they changed it, and they can easily now argument and have better background for discussions.
So the problem in Holland, we live in the same country, is when you want to develop a greater nature reserve, and you have to buy out some owners, you have to do it voluntarily. And if not, you're not supposed to get this ground in 30 or 40 or 50 years. So that's what I wanted to bring into the discussion. Thank you, Raymond, for your example. It depends on the problem that you have. In this case, it's about an eco-bridge, and it's about the decision where to build it. And from that point of view, you better put it into the discussion with all kind of stakeholders to search out where are the common grounds, or maybe it's hard to translate nature from one point to the other. Normally it's not possible. You have to have some kind of place where there is an ecosystem that you want to connect. So it's not you cannot replace it for 100 kilometers or something. So I don't mean that, but if you are in an area where you have to solve a problem for nature, then it's better to start it in an early stage, to have all kind of stakeholders around the table, because you have to do it voluntarily. So then you have to have a support base to build, and you build it from the ground. When you have a system politically that you can say, well, we decide, then you don't live in a democracy, I think, but you can say, well, I take that ground. Then you have a top-down approach. But in our case, the law is very concrete about in which case you can pick up the ground. So if you have not the possibility to pick up the ground, then you should go in a very early stage to start a negotiation with all kind of stakeholders.
Maybe I can add something small. Sorry. Oh, you want to say something? Okay. That's another possibility is, of course, look at a win-win situation. For example, we also own land, and if it's in the neighborhood, we can change. Or maybe even the forest agency, they also own land, and they can say, well, we give this part to you, and you give this one to us. So that's also a possibility. Yeah?
But it's also voluntarily.
Yes, voluntarily.
Exactly. Yeah. You need a lot of capacity to discuss and talk. But it's good to find maybe solutions for those. So to listen first to the sorrows they have. Maybe they say, okay, if you plant now for the Green Bridge a hedgerow, what will my son do if he has other ideas for this land? I cannot plant it now because it might be a big problem for him. So they also think in a very long-term perspective. And also these funding schemes, you have funding timelines. Let's say it's guilty for 7 years, and then a new scheme comes, and you cannot guarantee that this will go ahead. So you would need to give the landowner or the farmer or who is managing the land some security, I guess. This is also to find some ways, but sometimes they are not there, right? I mean, so you really need to. One also need to work on the policy level, unfortunately. This is where we're stuck, because nobody dares to get into this.
Yeah. You make the point that the agreement has to give the landowner continuity in his production or in his welfare of his production agency or something.
And maybe the sheep farmer can use the green bridge for grazing. I mean, we saw it last 2 days ago, right? It was, it's not the best idea, but I mean, the other, I mean, if we talk about large mammals and other animals, they use green bridges maybe during the night, and it does not interfere with each other. You know, this it's also, there's a lot of dynamic behind it, right?
I think we're running
out.
out of time.
Yeah. Okay, so I have to say thank you very much. I mean, if you have one comment or two, we can still take if you want. I think you wanted to say something. Yeah, good.
I would just say that we have compulsory purchase orders in Ireland. I don't know about nature, if nature is strong enough, but if you have something that's in the public interest, like a road, you can force the farmer to sell. But it's a terrible idea. And it really almost never works. And we've had a number of major controversies, like in Galway City now, there's a very narrow piece between the sea and a lake, and the lake is protected, and they decided to build a bridge through the lake, and Europe blocked it. It went to the European Court, and now they have to demolish houses to bring it through the city. And of course, none of it is a good solution. Yeah, it goes back to negotiation.
True, I mean, yeah, if you...
No, I think we were focusing very much on Eszter's theory on very face-to-face, 2 people, 3 people sort of discussion, but I think there it's much more strategic dimension of as soon as sort of how is nature conservation going to be framed in that sort of in the public discussion, in the public field, and as soon as it starts to be associated with forced expropriation, or expropriation is the wrong word because they do still receive market value price for it, but still it gives it this negative connotation. But I still see it's difficult because, like you say, you're trying to find 2 or 3 points in your transect where you can build a bridge, and there is no point in building a bridge in the wrong place if it has to somehow be close to the corridor. So there's this rub between those 2 situations, and I share your vision that somehow one has to find a common ground and start to involve stakeholders from an early point of view, from an early point in the process. But I'm just not convinced that involvement automatically leads to not automatically, but the success rate in my mind is still open as to how far we can get. And at some point, if somebody just does not want to give up their house, but we from a planning stage don't see a different solution, what do you do? And I think that's maybe
there's always a solution. It's just a lot more expensive.
Yeah.
And sometimes you just have to get used to the idea that you're going to have to spend a lot more money. So maybe you build a tunnel under the farm. I mean, it's crazy, but it is a solution.
Yeah, there could be always a solution, but there are always borders from where you can, if you can reach a solution as well. I didn't say you have to you have to negotiate about every problem that you have, but it depends on the problem. In what kind of strategic communication plan you will try to apply. So in the case of such a bridge, it's well, you have not much opportunities to change your strategy. And then if the negotiations will not work, then you have sometimes to decide how can we solve it. For example, by giving more money. You said it already in the discussion. Give me more money and I'll build a bridge. It's for the landowner the same. But
5 meters.
Good.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you very much. It was very interesting to talk to you and to share.